stop scrolling. In the next 2 minutes, you're going to watch Hollywood legend Michael Douglas tag team with Bill Maher to obliterate the last excuse propping up Kamala Harris. And you'll hear the stunned silence of a progressive panel that finally runs out of spin. Ready? They never saw it coming. Progressives still can't explain how Kamala Harris's campaign nosedived so spectacularly. And instead of honest self-reflection, they've built a tower of excuses that's swaying under its own weight. On a recent panel, even Bill Maher, hardly a conservative darling, couldn't ignore the obvious. He ripped their logic apart on live TV. And then Michael Douglas walked in and dropped a truth bomb that left every pundit at the table blinking in disbelief. Today, we're unpacking that exchange and showing why the left's refusal to face reality isn't just a political blunder. It's a full-scale strategy collapse. Buckle up, hit subscribe, and ring that bell so you never miss a takedown like this.
Who might emerge as the strongest Democratic opposition leader in the next Trump era? Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, like Adam Schiff, he won, right? Big. And
he won, but I like Westmore.
Westmore's fantastic. He's in Maryland.
Yep.
But who's going to be the one? Gavin Newsom, we have here in this state. He's already like called the legislature to. I mean, Trump hasn't done anything yet, but I understand the.
This was the problem. You know, there was a 2014 study that showed that Fortune 500 companies were more likely to pick a female CEO if the company was struggling, basically setting women up for the big job, but to also fail. If they did well, fine. But if they failed, like, look, we have a female CEO while failing. And that's what I feel like they did to Kamala Harris.
You want absurd? Try blaming Kamala's flop on her gender. I've survived Joy Reid's hot takes, so trust me, that bar is high. Harris didn't crash because she's a woman. She crashed because voters saw an uninspiring, tone-deaf candidate with no authentic message. It's the same tired storyline they trotted out for Hillary in 2016, only sadder on the sequel. When Sarah spun that talking point on the panel, Bill Maher and Michael Douglas finally tore the mask off, and the brutal honesty was long overdue.
That was a 3-month campaign, and she was supposed to introduce herself to the American people. No wonder people were Googling, did Joe Biden drop out? And so...
No. No. You're saying 3 months wasn't long enough?
It was too long. It was long enough.
It was long enough.
If they had a primary...
It's not that they didn't have time to introduce. They met someone and they didn't like them.
If they had had a primary, they wouldn't have picked her. And if they had, she would have been able to rough out those edges that then she basically has to start from scratch with a campaign team she didn't hire that didn't like her, right? It was his team. And so I wonder if that next Democratic person, maybe someone's not even on our radar yet. Because frankly, when you look at the history of who's there's two types. The one who waited in line, who was next in line, and then there's the one who comes out. That's Obama. That's Clinton. That's Reagan to some extent.
If even the Amish, yes, the community that shuns TVs and smartphones, knew what was at stake in 2020, mainstream pundits have zero excuse for playing dumb about Kamala. These commentators claim voters just didn't know her, while a group that travels by horse and buggy turned out in record numbers. Instead of admitting that disconnect, MSNBC's John Heilemann doubled down on Sarah's fantasy and rocketed the conversation into full absurdity.
You're the sitting vice president, and you get put on elevated to the top of the ticket 107 days ahead of the election. I think that is a very high degree of difficulty put on anybody, and I do not think she is the perfect candidate. I tend to agree with Sarah that probably in a fully litigated primary, she probably would not have been the Democratic nominee, but we'll never know that. But I will tell you that, there's never been anybody who's had the difficulty of that situation, elevated that late in the campaign. Why?
Needed to run away from
Bill, I don't know if you know this, but the Vice President of the United States is basically shoved in a broom closet for 3.5 years.
I know.
You couldn't.
She was more popular in there.
Yes, well.
I mean, this idea that in a mass media age, that 107 days is not long enough to know somebody?
You are way overestimating the American people in terms of what they. No. You have someone like Donald Trump has become a universally known, understood, loved by some, hated by others over the course of being omnipresent for 8 years.
Okay.
Barack Obama becomes president of the United States after running for 2 years as president, runs a 50-state primary, is on television, does dozens of Democratic debates, and by the time at the end of that, most people knew who he was.
We saw this train wreck from miles away. Harris didn't even reach Iowa in the 2020 primaries. She bailed before a single vote. Fast forward, and she's gifted mega donor cash, non-stop media cheerleading, and Hollywood's A-list backing. Result? She torched $1 billion and still ended $20 million in the hole. That's not a misstep. It's a political supernova. And yet, Heilemann lectures voters as if we simply didn't get it. The arrogance is breathtaking, and exactly why trust in legacy media is in free fall.
Small dollar donors are arguably the worst thing that's happened to our politics, as it turned out.
It's a small dollar donor didn't make $20 billion. No.
A lot of it.
Some of it, yeah.
A lot of it. And they represent about 2% of our country.
There's a few special PACs in there that saw $100 million plus.
Those are bad too.
You know.
I think you can believe that you could have shorter elections in America, but it's not like we don't know. In Britain, for instance, when you have a short election, it's not like you don't know who the leader of the party is for months and years before that.
But you're either the person who's Googling the day before, did Biden drop out, or you know in a week. You know, did anyone in this audience not know enough about Kamala Harris pretty much after a week to make a decision? Yeah, people.
How
It's ridiculous. We just get sicker of them.
Let's address two whoppers. First, portraying small dollar donors as a problem. Those grassroots dollars are democracy's lifeblood. Mocking them screams elitism. Second, the fantasy of legally shrinking campaign seasons. Who decides that timeline? Any rule muzzling a candidate's early start tramples the First Amendment. Besides, early launches crash all the time. Ask Jeb Bush. Yet the panel kept spewing excuses until Maher finally snapped and forced a reality check.
Why do you have to make all these excuses for her? This, like I said, all this was this week was people who said, "Oh, she ran a flawless campaign. How ridiculous!" Or it's racism. This is an old playbook.
Yes, I didn't say any of those things.
I know, but I've heard a lot of these things, and I think America's perfectly willing to elect a woman. They just didn't like the last two that were put up.
Gender has nothing to do with why voters bolt. Policies, performance, and clarity of vision decide elections. Strike out on all three, and the electorate swipes left every time. Trying to guilt people into identity-based voting isn't strategy, it's manipulation. Need proof Harris is out of step? Roll her recent Pacific Palisades clip. One awkward moment says more than a dozen polished press releases.
What goes through your mind when you see this? You're here, you're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment.
Yikes. There's really no better word for it. That recent clip of Kamala Harris stumbling through a speech in Pacific Palisades didn't just raise eyebrows. It confirmed every fear voters had about her competence. We seriously dodged a political bullet. But here's the kicker. Now she's setting her sights on California's governor's seat. Yep, the same state already drowning in bad policies and bureaucratic bloat might be her next playground. This is a defining moment. If Californians fall for the same media spin and identity politics routine again, it'll show nothing has been learned. But if they see through the smoke and mirrors this time, it could mark a major turning point. Let's hope voters are paying attention. Ask ChatGPT,